I had one horrific experience of stage fright when I was in kindergarten, and I think that burned out my capacity for stage fright at any point after that.
They're the world's shiniest rock and roll band. You may know them from their songs Baby Lord or Laser Days. Please welcome Jaymes from Hot Apollo. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Great to be speaking with you today.
Yeah, great to have you on. Can't wait to have this conversation with you, learn a bit more about, your career, your time with the band, all of that. So, first question that I usually ask just to get things started. What was your first experience with music like? What made you first get into music? How did you get introduced to that?
Um, there were basically two main factors in my desire to do music. Um, First, I always had an affinity for poetry. Like I was writing poems before I ever really like knew that singing was specifically what I wanted to do. But I liked writing poems, and that like turned into writing lyrics. I mean, I still do both. But I also just really loved just like any kind of performance. Like when I was a kid, I'd join like drama camps or like school plays whenever I could. If I couldn't, I would like jump up on the desk in the middle of class and start singing whenever there was a spare moment. Um, that is just I just liked doing that kind of thing. I just liked uh, expressing passion through uh, wild displays
Yeah.
of performance. And so it's like being in a rock and roll band uh, turned out to be a very uh, compatible like vessel for that.
Yeah.
It's a great outlet.
And
It's a great,
and so
yeah.
these sort of like, trying to express yourself in school, these sort of outbursts, did that ever land you in trouble at all? Was that ever, you know, did people ever try to like calm you down? Because that happens in schools a lot. Kids start acting up, and they want everyone to behave themselves and stay in seats and all that. So, did you ever experience anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. With some teachers more than others. There were some who took quite badly. Although there was one in particular I remember who was actually fine with it when like as long as like I finished my work first. Like if the class like did the schoolwork promptly, then she'd give us the rest of the period to just like fool around, and she was totally fine with the fact that for me meant uh, a certain level of wildness beyond the norm. Um,
Yeah.
and she was a lovely lady. I think she came out of retirement to teach just because she was bored. So we got along pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, growing up, it seems like you always wanted to do some sort of performing art, some sort of thing that you could be on a stage where, have an audience. Was it always music, or did you ever have, any maybe theater dreams, anything like that? Any other performing art dreams?
So as I said, I was in like plays and stuff when I could. Um, at this point in my life, it's like music is definitely the main focus, but acting is still something I dabble in here and there. Um, and like not stage acting so much because the uh, the scheduling of that is not really conducive to the rest of my focuses in life.
Yeah,
But like screen acting is something, and modeling to a point. Those are things I can do whenever the opportunity strikes. It's just not where it's not what I'm like pursuing with the most fervency in the way that music is.
yeah. And so
But it is fun in its own way.
would
Yeah.
you kind of feel that music's like your main thing right now, the thing you're trying to focus on?
Yeah, music's always going to be my lifeblood. Um, Personally, I see it as one of the purest forms of self-expression, at least for me as a singer and singer who like writes their own lyrics, because
Yeah,
I'm expressing what I feel through words with my own mouth and body, um, and that's not. I don't get that in the same way from acting because usually in acting you're playing something someone else wrote, and that's its own challenge. It's its own reward. That's its own uh, like pleasure, but it is distinct and it doesn't quite offer the same angle on expression that music does for me personally.
Hmm. And so, anyone else that wants to start focusing on music, start a band, start their own music career, what sort of tips or advice would you give to them to help them get started?
Uh, it's the same sort of thing, people say when uh, their friends are thinking about like having kids, like it's there's a good chance it's not going to be the wisest uh, lifestyle choice from the standpoint of like logic and like financial stability.
Yeah.
It's going to be like it can from certain points of view it can be a burden in some ways, but if it's really what you want to do for its own sake, then you've got to do it, and rewards may come. Uh, the fame and fortune are not like don't do it for the money because the money can be good, but it has a much higher chance of not being good at all.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to do it free and the slightest chance of uh, riches and glory, then go ahead. But just focus on the fact that you will do it for no money because you just love it so much. Like if you're cool
Yeah.
with that gamble to the point where it's not even a gamble for you, then go for it. It's because I mean it's I can't imagine my life without it. It is like the most spiritually fulfilling thing. It is my direction in life. It is why I'm here. And I feel that it's a rare blessing to know exactly why you're here. A lot of people
Yeah.
don't. A lot of people don't have that like certainty of purpose, but I have it. And it's for music, which has its own struggles, but it's worth it for me. It really is like nothing else.
So was there any like moment in particular that kind of told you that this was what you were meant to be doing, or was it just sort of a feeling you've constantly had?
Um, that's a good way of putting it. I think it is a feeling I've constantly had, but it wasn't something I was always consciously aware of. Um, but when I like when something clicked in my brain to tell me, no, wait, yeah, this some part of you has always known this, but now uh, the rest of you has awoken to that fact too, and after that, there's no looking back. It's almost like, do you ever like wake up in the morning and have like a few moments after sleep before your whole mind has realized that you're in fact awake? It's almost like that.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So it was sort of, you know, you had the feeling, but you just didn't notice it, or you didn't realize it was there until you sort of unlocked it, something like that.
Yeah, there were definitely points where like I suspected, but like I hadn't. I think it was around like the end of high school or like early university before I like totally like locked in on it. Yeah, probably yeah, and like around the end of high school. That was like when I like basically like chose that as my like main path and and just like rode that with full force.
And so is that around the time that you started your band, or did that come a bit later, after deciding to pursue music?
That like right after I decided that I started working towards building this band. Yeah.
Mhm. And now you have this band, Hot Apollo. How did you come up with that name in the first place when you sort of sat down and wanted to come up with a name for this band?
So I was in a few bands in high school that never really went anywhere because I was the only one who seemed able to sustain any sort of a like drive for like making music and taking things somewhere. A lot of other people would start out by like there were actually like two different people who approached me with these huge manifestos of wanting to be the greatest, biggest rock and roll band of the generation, and then like within like weeks or months, they just faded out. Um, that's nothing against them as people. That their just music turned out not to be where their lives led, and that's
Yeah.
they found fulfillment in other ways. Anyway, one of these guys, great dude, named Hard Needles, and he was a big fan of like beat poetry, like 50s, like Jack Kerouac and like Bukowski, all that stuff. And we were like tossing band name ideas back and forth, like shortly into our trial of making band together. And one he came up with stuck out to me. He pulled it from a poem by Allen Ginsberg called "The Shroud Stranger," which was about the sort of underground gay orgy scene that a lot of bohemian homosexuals were forced into during that period for fear of persecution. So it was about how it was the one place where they could just be fully open and not have to hide any aspect of themselves. And there was this one line in it, something about like being caressed by hot Apollo, and that stuck out to him. And when he said it to me, it clicked with the fondness that I have for mythology. And there's something about the name of that god in particular that I always found um, pleasing to the ear and fun to say too. So I that got stuck in my mind. I don't think we used it for our band, and he didn't want to use it for uh, his potential solo project because he always said if he was going to start a solo project, it would be called Heart Needles and Love Darts, since Heart Needles was actually his given name. And anyway, flash forward by a bit, I'm starting my own band, and we're initially called the Body Electric after a Walt Whitman poem. And then I realized there's another band in Toronto by that name. So I call up Heart Needles and I say, yo, you said you were never going to use that Hot Apollo name. I think I like it if you'd be all right with that. And he says, yeah, no, sure, it's yours. Just promise me one thing. If anyone ever asks where you got the name, you tell them from Heart Needles. So now I am obliged at every opportunity to
Contractually
recite that
obligated to
fable.
tell me that you got it from Heart Needles.
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad you
Yeah.
do so because he's I think he's like living in the mountains or something somewhere, probably like writing philosophy or something. I don't know. He's a sort of got a bit of a like hippie philosopher vibe to him. Always did, but I think he's accentuated that more. I think he climbs mountains too. He's an interesting
Hmm.
dude. Um, but yeah, and I'll always thank him for coming up with the name that is emblazoned across my career,
Yeah, and
apart from mine.
like once you reach that point, you sort of have the band formed, you got a name for it. When you started to, come up with the music, record music, what was that creative process like? How did most of your songs come up? Did you start writing and then try to find instrumentals to that, or do you start with the instruments first?
What's the thing? I've always been writing. Like I'm always writing poems or songs. Um, so I always have like there are always things I can pull out when like I hear a riff that catches my ear, or sometimes like I'll like have an idea for a song and I'll take it to the guitarist and we'll work on it together. Or sometimes someone will play a riff that'll spark something in me and I'll like write some lyrics for that. It happens in all kinds of ways, but I it's usually where I come up with the lyrics and possibly like a rough version of a riff, and then like the band will work on it together. So
Hmm.
that's usually how it happens.
Hmm. And you know, being in such a collaborative setting like that when trying to make music, how do you sort of try to make sure there's no, I guess creative differences in the band, make sure that people agree on how a song should go, get along, everything like that.
Um, I think there's a sort of a clarity of vision that helps with that. Like Hot Apollo has a very distinctive sound, and everyone in the band is on board with that. So all of us are trying to work towards making each song the best uh, ex- example of that sound that it can be. And there are like we might have like slight differences of opinion in like uh, details here or there, but it's generally like quite um, like natural to work through those
Yeah,
together. There's
yeah.
not a lot of like intense friction.
Are you a music artist trying to find a way to get your music on as many streaming platforms as possible? Then check out DistroKid. DistroKid is a super user-friendly and super easy-to-use service that will make your music available in stores like Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon Music, YouTube, Snapchat, everything. Everything you could imagine, it's available. People will even be able to add your songs into their Instagram stories. DistroKid helps you with the distribution, monetization, and promotion of all of your music. Use the link in the description of this video for 7% off any DistroKid package you want. Pick from musician packages designed to help artists get their own music out there, or even get a label package where you can manage up to 100 artists from one profile. So that's more for like managers, labels, and you can also get the musician package that I mentioned earlier, which is more for artists, producers, things like that. And super easy, and you can get 7% off any package right now with the link in the description of this video. So once again, if you're looking for a way to get your music on as many streaming platforms as possible, I'm talking any platform you can think of, get DistroKid and get 7% off right now with the link in the description. Back to the program. Once you kind of had some music under your belt, music you released, what was your first live experience like when you kind of brought the band for their first live show, live performance?
So my very first live experience was just uh, with my guitarist at the time because we hadn't found a rhythm section yet. So I had a friend who was in town with his band, and they brought the guitarist and me up on stage during one of their shows, um, and served as a backing band so that the guitarist and I could play the first song we ever wrote together. And so it was really intense. And I was like, I was hooked. Like, it's being up there singing on stage. It's a pleasure for me like no other. It is like the peak of living for me.
Hmm.
And I'm always chasing the next one, and it's always going to satisfy.
Yeah. And so you've sort of, from the jump in, comfortable on stage, never had any like stage fright or anything like that?
I had one horrific experience of stage fright when I was in kindergarten, and I think that burned out my capacity for uh, stage fright at any point after that. It was my school was having a special like after hours Christmas assembly where each class would do a different um, Christmas song as a chorus for all the parents, and my kindergarten class was doing Jingle Bells, which at the time was my favorite Christmas song. So I was delighted to do this. And
Yeah.
we'd been rehearsing for weeks. I felt totally comfortable, totally prepared. I was excited to do it. Then that assembly rolls around. It's 6 or 7 on a December evening, and for some reason, which I still don't understand, I spontaneously burst into tears in a panic attack during the first verse. Whereupon I run into the audience to bury my head in my mother's lap. And after that, I never had any like tinge of stage fright ever again. And
Hmm.
yeah, so I don't think I have the capacity anymore. I think it just got burnt out of me in one explosive moment.
Hmm. And, you know, so that, I guess that's pretty lucky, I guess, for you because a lot of artists, even years into doing it, still, have a little bit of nervousness, a little bit of anxiety before heading out on stage. And I think it's great for you that you can just sort of feel comfortable right away when you get on stage.
Yeah, part of that is the fact that the stage is like the one place where I make the most sense. Like, I don't think it's gonna really surprise anyone uh, when I say that I I don't really fit in uh, traditionally in those places, and I'm fine with that. Like, I wear that proudly, but uh, the stage is the one place where I think like almost anyone would agree that I don't seem so out of place, you know? So
Hmm.
it's my home. It really is.
Yeah. And so, you know, kind of like you said at the start, it's not, you got to be in music for, I guess, for the love of it or just for the right reasons in general. You can't be doing it for the chase of fame, for fortune. And that's because it's a hard, industry to get in, hard career to follow. Was there ever, a tough moment that sort of made you second guess music or think about taking a break from making music?
No, I literally can't stop. It's not a choice. Like
Yeah.
it's what drives me. It's what gives my life meaning. So there's never a chance of stopping. Even if like someone like some cosmic being came down and said, "Hey, I've seen the future." Like no one's ever going to like know your music. You're never going to get anywhere for it. You're never going to make any money from it. Like I'm not going to be able to stop making it. I'm not going to be able to stop performing it. It's what I have to do, you know. But I do
Hmm.
believe that the whole world will know it someday. That's that's still the goal. Still working towards that,
Yeah. And,
and I think they'll
is
be
there,
happier for it.
and so you seem very, determined for this. I get you're very set on music, and I think that's a great thing to have. Is it, back to that gut feeling we were talking about, or is there sort of maybe a person that sort of instilled this, work ethic, this dedication to something in you?
Hmm. No, I mean, it always seemed fairly obvious to me that generally one needs to uh, commit to anything that they want to take anywhere. You know, dedication tends to be like one of the biggest parts of making anything happen. Um, so yeah, that seemed pretty natural. Although I will thank my parents for uh, raising me in a way that reinforced that. They were both of them were doctors, and they obviously had to work very hard to uh, take up the professions they chose. Um, and while they didn't want like me to necessarily follow in their footsteps, they were very clear that uh, while they were fine with whatever life path I chose, basically, that was only true as long as I did whatever I could to uh,
Like to the highest
honor
of your
my
ability?
commitment. Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To do the best I could in that field, you know.
Yeah.
And then I really thank them for being so supportive um, of my rather unconventional vocation.
Hmm.
But yeah, and for teaching and for like reminding me that uh, commitment is um, a responsibility. It's I there are a lot of responsibilities I don't want to take into my life. You know, I never want to be responsible for like a child or a pet, but when I do take up a responsibility, I take it seriously, and I'm in it for the long haul.
Hmm.
And music is the top of that.
Yeah. And so you you say, that you kind of don't you think that you never want the responsibility of a child. Is there any reason for that? Any motivation behind that? Yeah, as long as you're open to talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, like kids are great. Like you know, I my brother's probably gonna have kids pretty soon, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with them. For instance, but uh, they they really, I don't know. I suppose some people say something about music, but they mean that you have to you have less time to focus on yourself
Yeah.
and the other parts of your life. And for me, that would mean less time uh, on things like music. I'd have to, unless I was all right with being a bad parent, which I would not be. Um, I would have to let my other passions in life fall by the wayside in order to
Yeah.
raise a child to the best of my ability, which every child should be raised to the best of their parents' ability. Otherwise, what's the point in having one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the idea of like being as good as my parents were to my hypothetical child is daunting and essentially unimaginable. So yeah, I'm not even gonna. I don't. It's the sort of thing that I don't want to do because I know that I don't really have the capacity to do it uh, as well as it should be done. So
Yeah.
there's no real point for me. I mean,
Yeah.
apart from vanity, I mean, it would be cool to see like what kind of child I'd create, but that's not a good reason.
Yeah. And so, you know, a lot of, music today, artists today, they've sort of gone from, longer album releases to more, focusing on singles. And now a lot of artists just want, a quick, catchy song to put on like social media. So everything seems to be getting shorter, and a lot of people are promoting on social media. What do you think that does for music? Do you think that helps the industry, helps artists grow? Or do you think it just sort of, oversaturates everything and makes it hard to find what you're looking for?
I've I'm not sure I have any sort of cogent idea. As good as I am on the creative and performative aspects of music, um, the some of the business details elude my intuitive understanding.
Yeah.
I will say, I mean, there's always been a tendency uh, to for like the things at the very top of the mainstream consciousness to be more easily digestible. Like even like the biggest rock acts in the height of rock and roll's dominion in the 60s and 70s tended to have lead singles that were cut down to play on the radio.
Yeah.
So that's not terribly different. It's just instead of the radio, it's Instagram or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so I just, uh, I have an album of songs, and they are wonderfully catchy. I just put out two new music videos for them, Baby Lord and Working on Love, and yeah, they they are amazing, but they are not inaccessible.
Yeah.
You could play them to anyone and they'd get into it. Um, but then when you're ready for more, the album's waiting for you. If that's your choice. Some people want to be like more ADHD about it and always flip from like one single to another, and that's fine too. I do that with some music sometimes. I'll like, oh, I really like this one band because they have like two or three songs I love, and like play often, but I don't really know the deeper catalog. That happens. That's not. There's no invalid way to uh, interact with art. It's always up to the audience.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think when you're willing, you're rewarded for it, and I think almost everyone has acts they'll do that for, and I'll guarantee that Hot Apollo is one act that will reward you richly for digging deeper and seeing what else we have to offer behind or beyond the lead singles.
Yeah. And, you know, so when making music, do you sort of find inspiration from other artists, other bands? And if you do, how do you sort of keep your own unique style or touch on it?
Uh, no, it's all unique style. It's all unique touch.
Mhm.
I Yeah, I don't really get creative inspiration from any particular source. I will say this though. When I was first deciding to become a singer specifically, after playing mediocre drums in a couple of high school bands, I didn't play any other any sort of traditional way. Um, and I was trying to think if there were any successful musicians who had nothing but the skills I had at the time, which were uh, lyricism and amazing stage presence. And the only one I could think of uh, with nothing but those two things was Iggy Pop. I thought, that guy also began by playing drums badly in high school bands, and then went on to have a successful, like admirable career in music
Yeah.
that spans decades. And he did that with nothing but stage presence and uh, the words he sang. And I thought, you know what? If he can do it, it's worth a try. And that really like gave me the extra like boost I needed uh, to believe that it was possible. And then since then, I did learn, you know, more about singing for one thing. I definitely learned how to like develop my voice properly, and I did learn uh, a bit of like guitar and piano to the point where I could at least like help with the process of like writing the music.
Mhm.
But yeah, so Iggy Pop provided a kind of inspiration, just not in a creative way.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by W Energy. W Energy is an energy drink you mix at home from a tub. It helps you focus, it helps you concentrate, it helps you win. W is a lot like these other energy drink mix companies you see, but it's better. They have better flavors, they have better taste, they have better products. You can get Dragonade, you can get Galaxy Grenade, you can get Dub Sludge, and so many more great flavors like Beach and Peach. Once you have the powder to make one of these flavors, you can also get one of W's own shaker cups to make your drinks at home. If energy drinks aren't your thing, no worries. You can get products like stickers and clothing that look awesome. If you just want to try out W, you can go ahead and get one of their starter packs. It comes with a shaker cup and 3 flavors. On top of that, any products you get on any order from W, you can save 10% by using my discount code Heroek. That's just my name, Heroek, in all caps. One more time, that's code Heroek at w.gg for 10% off any order. Go focus, go concentrate, go in, be better. W. So you're the lead singer now, that's sort of what you're focusing on, but, being so enveloped in music, do you ever see yourself, like, maybe wanting to learn new instruments, trying to, learn instruments here and there to help, uh, work towards the instrumental side, or do you think you're just gonna stick more towards the vocals and focus on that?
It's hard to say. I nothing else that's like on the horizon as far as instruments go right now. Um, but yeah, I mean, guitar and piano are just wonderful for writing songs on, so they help with that. I could definitely stand to get better at both though. But yeah, just generally, I'm pretty good at like having people around me who can communicate with me um, to develop the song. It's pretty organic. I do not feel like limited in any way right now. Because at my heart, I am still a poet who's uh, putting music to words. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, there could be a time when I'm more interested in developing uh, new instrumental abilities. But yeah, it's not something I've really given much thought to so far.
Yeah, and so, I see a big connection in general just between poetry and music. Like, I know a lot of people who sort of started off with poetry, got into that, and then eventually use that to start writing lyrics, get into music. How did you sort of make the transition from writing poems to songs, if there is a transition, or do you just sort of keep the same writing?
Um, if I know something's going to be a poem, uh, there are different approaches I'll take to crafting it from the start.
Mhm.
Like I tend to have I tend to write my poems in uh like specific meters, and that's not something I always do with songs. Although a bunch of my poems have been adapted into songs, so there's that. And it's all coming from the same like source, so it's not really that different.
Yeah.
It's basically like there are people who do visual arts in various media. Like they'll have some paintings and they'll have some pencil drawings. And they'll just choose whatever tool is best for getting their specific concept across. And I think that's it. That's it for me. Like a poem can be a painting, and a song can be like a pen and ink illustration. You know, so I'd say
Yeah.
I'd say it's like that. And then sometimes you'll I don't know tell an illustrated story with paint or whatever. There are ways to
Yeah.
like translate bits of one to the other.
Yeah. And so, once you've released music, is there any song that you sort of released and then it performed better or worse than you initially thought it would?
Um, no, I'm not really a numbers guy. I don't keep track of that
Yeah.
so much. Although someone recently told me that Laser Days has the most plays on Spotify by a fairly wide margin. Um, and I'm alright with that. That's like I think it's a wonderful anthem. It was I think the first song. It was one of the first like singles I professionally recorded.
Mhm.
Um, I think it was the first one. I had Hot Apollo had an initial EP a few years ago, and I think that was like the next song we recorded after that. And I think it has a wonderful like anthemic, like kind of like uh, raw quality about it. And
Yeah.
I'm really proud of the lyrics of that one too. I think it says a lot about what Hot Apollo is about.
Yeah. And,
I think yeah.
so is that sort of, I guess, if someone, wanted to learn Hot Apollo and you had to, pick one song to be like, this is who we are, this is our sound. Do you think Laser Days would be that song?
If I recorded it now, I'd probably produce it differently. But I think Baby Lord might be the best summary of what Hot Apollo is about because it has a bunch of diverse ingredients to it that do a lot to showcase the different aspects of Hot Apollo's sound and ethos. So I think it's probably the Baby Lord is probably the best uh, concise encapsulation of a lot of the breadth of Hot Apollo. So I would start with that if you're going to start with anything.
Yeah.
Just knowing
And
nothing else, that'd be my recommendation.
yeah.
And it has a cool video to go along with it, which it was a lot of fun to shoot. So you can tell we're having fun. I think when you see it.
And for that video, how long did it take to shoot, all the scenes start to finish?
Um, the actual shooting was pretty efficient. Uh, Things around the shooting took longer. It was this weird day where we live in Toronto, where a bunch of different factors conspired to make traffic insane. So everyone's
Mhm.
coming from different parts of uh, the area, and so that delayed things. And then we got lost, at least like once or twice when we were like trying to find the right spots for the shoot. But even with that, like it went pretty smoothly, and I made a good time. I will say it was I think we shot it in like May, maybe June. I want to say May, and for some reason it was a very cold day in May, and I am not wearing much in that video. Uh, and like between some of the shots, I was like shivering and like grimacing from the cold. I get cold really easily. It wasn't that cold. It was like
Yeah.
I don't know. It was probably like 14 or 15 degrees at lowest. Like maybe even like it was windy, but I get cold really easily. I never get too hot, but I get so cold. And so I was just like the cold was like not hitting me well. But I tried like uh do my best to just like let myself like live in the moment while I was singing in the video, which is very easy for me. Like when I'm performing, like that is my entire universe. So I got into it, but like I just remember after one take, I like went to the director and said, "Hey, can you tell that I'm cold in that shoot?" He said, "No, no, no, you're fine." And I looked at it and he was right. So it's all good. But yeah, I just remember having a qualified good time on that day. You know.
Yeah. And so, if you sort of got this magical chance to make a song with any artist or any band in the world, who would you want Hot Apollo to work with?
Do they have to be like living?
No, it can be, past or present. I know that
So
makes it
for
hard. I
some,
know that expands it to so many
no, that
possibilities, but
no, that's cool. I have. So here's the thing. I don't really. Hot Apollo doesn't really do. We've never really done a cover song, and that's in large part because like I'm a poet, so singing someone else's words doesn't really make sense to me. Like I
yeah,
don't know, if someone's like record label said, "Hey, we like your new album, but like for marketing purposes, we want you to have like one cover on it." Like I could do that, but like I need a very good reason to do a cover. Um, so it's not something I've ever really thought of. But for some reason, I always thought it'd be fun to collaborate with Mark Bolan on a cover of Blondie's "One Way or Another." I don't know why that feels right to me, but if I could only collaborate like, with one person, I think that'd be fun. And it's funny. I think he was a poet too, so he did do a lot of covers. I think he did a cover of Tutti Frutti, which is pretty cool. I was just listening to it today, because he was a big like Little Richard freak, which I appreciate. Little Richard was one of the first like real flamboyant rock stars.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, give it up for Little Richard. But yeah, I think I collaborating on one way or another with Mark Bolan, despite the fact that Blondie only ever did that song like after he was dead, would be fun. It feels right for some reason. So yeah,
yeah,
that's somewhat whimsical, but it's the first collaboration comes to mind.
yeah. And so I guess, sort of similar to that, another hypothetical, if do you have any sort of dream venue or festival that you want to play with Hot Apollo, if you sort of, gotta pick any venue to play at?
I have a few. At some point, okay, I'm gonna have two because one's more general and one's a place that I visited when I was a kid and thought was really cool. So I think it'd be cool to play like the biggest Colosseum that's still standing in Rome, like from like in Italy, sorry, but like from ancient Roman times. Ancient
Yeah,
Rome's in Italy, so yeah. Because I went there and thought, yo, if I could have like a big concert here, that would be intense. I want to do that. So that'd be a cool venue because especially since I'm a big, I'm not a huge fan of history specifically, but I'm a big fan of like historical mythology, like the myths of ancient cultures.
yeah.
So that sort of gives me like a tie to appreciating um, the relics of lost civilization of uh, extinct civilizations. So
Mhm.
yeah, playing one of those would be cool. Um, or I don't know. I mean, the Parthenon maybe too. I don't know. But also, I think like whatever the biggest stadium or whatever in Tokyo is,
Mhm.
because Tokyo is. I've never been there in part because well, I need a good reason to go there for one thing because the idea of sitting still on a plane ride for like 20 hours or whatever is antithetical to me. I can't even like be in the
Yeah.
same like spot for like 3 hours. Like I used to love going. I like going to the movies. I love movies. But like if a movie's getting like beyond the 2 hour mark, I really start to feel restless, and that's just something I enjoy, right? So imagine being on a plane ride, which I don't enjoy, even if it's
Yeah.
short, but for like a day.
Yeah.
That I just I'm too restless and too like frenzied to like sit still that long. You know, like I, I would need like a plane ride that's the length of a plane ride with the like amenities and space of like a cruise ship. Like, if it had like a
Yeah.
gym and a pool and like places to walk, then
Yeah.
I could probably get by. It wouldn't be the most comfortable thing, but like if I only had to spend like 20 hours on a cruise ship in the sky, that'd be cool, I guess. That'd be all right. but yeah, just on a plane as they exist now, I don't know, man. But at some
Yeah.
point, I will get there because it's like Tokyo's like everything I love about cities to the extreme degree. And I do love cities, so I think I'd like to go there and playing a show there would be radical. And it is
Yeah.
a place like Tokyo has its own kind of like equivalent of a glam rock scene. There's some bands out of there that are pretty sparkly. Not as sparkly as the sparkliest rock and roll band in the galaxy, Hot Apollo, but
Yeah.
they give it up. And yeah, so I think that'd be a good fit.
Mhm. And, from the music you've released, is there a song of yours that's your favorite, that you have sort of a special connection to?
So many, I would say most, if not all. I mean, they're all special. It's the
Yeah.
whole like thing of choosing children because while I don't want a living human child, like music is my baby. Also,
Yeah.
I'm my own baby. I'm very much um, an immature little brat myself. So again, not suited to be a parent. But the first song I ever wrote, actually, the first song I ever like wrote like within the first like half hour of Hot Apollo's existence,
Mhm.
is called Tempest Honey, and it is the opening song on our next album, which I started recording in the week after I dropped this album. And it's not going to be out for like at least a year, uh, but um, it is special for that reason, and I think it says a lot about. It also it sort of it does it I think it does give a sort of peek into our ethos as a song too.
Mhm.
Like you hear that like power chord, open it up, you hear what I'm singing, you even hear the title, and I think it evokes a lot of what Halapal is about just from that stage. And it's much rawer than a track like Baby Lord. Um, it's got a sort of like it's got a bit of like punk energy, got a bit of like um big uh like forceful um like rock potency.
Yeah.
But you can I think I'm pretty sure there's like a rough like camera live version of it on YouTube even now. I think it was like when we were playing Lee's Palace a year ago. But yeah, within the next like 18 months, it should be out in like its full glory for everyone here. And that song is special to me because, in part because it's the first song we ever wrote as a band.
Yeah.
And it is so, uh, just emblematic of what Holocaust is about in its own, kind of, uh, like natural way.
Yeah. Well, those are all the questions I had for you today. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a great conversation. Where can people find your band, How to Follow, on social media? If you have a website, anything like that, where can people find you?
Yeah, all of that. So, we are, Hot Apollo, HOTAPOLLO. If you search for Hot Apollo anywhere on the internet, you'll find us. That's like every music streaming platform, like iTunes, Spotify, Bandcamp, YouTube, SoundCloud, wherever you listen to music, we are there. Same thing, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. Um, yeah, you'll find us pretty easily. Just search for that. We're always Hot Apollo on all those. And if you use Linktree, it's just actually I think I'm bad at remembering Linktree addresses, despite the fact they're simple. It's what is it? Yeah, linktr.ee/Hot Apollo. And that has
Mhm.
like basically all of our links. Um, and well, yeah, sorry, and we do have an official website, um, hotapollo dot rocks. Although if you type in hotapollo.com, it'll get you there, but it has to be dot rocks, right? Like that's just natural.
Obviously.
Um, and if you ever like, if anyone still uses email out there and wants like, let me know what they think of our songs or anything else, hotapollo at rocketmail.com. Yeah, so yeah, just whatever. Hot Apollo, you'll find us. We're out there. We're everywhere for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll leave a link to some of that down below. Thank you so much again for coming on. And yeah, it's been a great time.
Yeah, likewise.